Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 6 Part 4 based on novel. So let's start. The Nirvana demon flame was kind of flame that had been formed from Nirvana chi. However, it was several times more powerful than any ordinary Nirvana flame. This kind of flame was not scorching hot, but it possessed unusual melting ability. Under the wrap of that flame, even the powerful Nirvana golden body would be melted into a puddle of blood. Normally speaking, this kind of Nirvana demon flame would only appear after one experienced 3 Nirvana tribulation. Such a flame was born from within. If one was careless, one would be stealthily melted down by it. At that time, other people might not see any change from the outside, but the interior of one's body would likely become completely empty and one's flesh and bones would cease to exist. It was an extremely frightening and strange fate. Such a thing was an existence that would cause those experts, who had the qualification to attempt the 3rd Nirvana tribulation, to change their expressions instantly. It was also the reason why Lin Dong's face would suddenly appear so ugly after seeing the Nirvana demon flame appearing in front of him. The black-colored Nirvana demon flame was suspended in front of Lin Dong. Its black fire seed rose slowly, while it repeatedly changed its shape, appearing just like a demon bearing their fangs, causing one's heart to turn cold. Lin Dong's expression was solemn. He did not dare to move his body. He knew that the instant he moved, the Nirvana demon flame in front of him would immediately pounce towards him. Furthermore, there was no guarantee that he would be able to endure the melting strength of this Nirvana demon flame with his current strength. "You are really unlucky," little Martin, who was on Lin Dong's shoulder, looked at this cluster of black-colored flame and whispered. Behind Lin Dong, little flame also acted as though it had met a great enemy. Faint black-colored energy flowed over the surface of his body, while its eyes cautiously stared at the Nirvana demon flame that was floating unsteadily. Now is not the time to pass such sarcastic remarks. The corner of Lin Dong's mouth was pulled as his voice was consciously soft. His eyes were cautiously staring at the Nirvana demon flame, which was wiggling. It is unexpected that this kind of Nirvana demon flame has actually been created within this Nirvana burning sky array. This thing might be dangerous, but it is also a treasure. If you are able to control it, it will definitely become another ace up your sleeve. Little Martin suddenly said as it stared at that Nirvana demon flame. Lin Dong's face involuntarily twitched when he heard this, before he immediately let out a dry laughter. If this Nirvana demon flame was something that was so easy to control, it was likely that those experts who had the qualification the 3rd Nirvana tribulation and beyond, would not turn so fearful when they heard its name. Even Lin Dong, who possessed the devouring ancestral symbol, did not dare to carelessly swallow this thing. It should be known that this thing would not completely disintegrate. If a little bit of it was allowed to enter Lin Dong's body, it was likely that the interior of his body would be melted until nothing was left. At that time, one would suffer a fate worse than death. Of course, if this thing could really be controlled like little Martin had mentioned, it would indeed be considered a killing move. After all, this was something that even experts like Liu Bai were extremely wary of. It is true that this thing cannot be subdued with the devouring ancestral symbol. However, you have more than a single legendary item like the devouring ancestral symbol, little Martin laughed. The devouring ancestral symbol might be powerful, but Lin Dong was still too weak after all. Therefore, he was unable to unleash its true strength. "You mean, the mysterious stone talisman?" Lin Dong was startled momentarily before recovering immediately. The only godlike items that he had were the devouring ancestral symbol and the mysterious stone talisman. "Yes." Little Martin nodded. Its claws immediately moved before a warm white glow flew out from Lin Dong's palm. It was the mysterious stone talisman. Boom! At the moment that little Martin summoned the mysterious stone talisman, the Nirvana demon flame in front seemed to have sensed something. Immediately, the flame curled and suddenly rushed out. It charged towards Lin Dong's side with a lightning-like speed. Cold perspiration appeared on Lin Dong's forehead the moment he saw the action of the Nirvana demon flame. A thought passed through his mind before his majestic mental energy rushed out. It swiftly formed a tough mental energy barrier in front of him. However, this mental energy barrier that could block a powerful explosion from a 1 Nirvana stage expert was as weak as being curd in front of that cluster of black-colored flame. The latter had just made contact when the mental energy barrier before it disappeared at a shockingly speed, appearing just like snow that had met with a flame. Lin Dong finally sensed the frightening ability of this Nirvana flame at this moment. No wonder those experts, who had the ability to attempt the third Nirvana stage, were so afraid of it. "Little Martin, you done?" Lin Dong's body hurriedly withdrew. His mental energy rushed out and repeatedly blocked the Nirvana demon flame that was charging over. However, regardless of what tactic he used, that Nirvana demon flame still swiftly charged over in an overwhelming manner and continuously reduced the gap between the both of them. All Lin Dong could do was to hurriedly cry towards Little Martin. Experts at this are. Little Martin ignored Lin Dong's cry. Instead, its eyes were solemn as it continued to activate the stone talisman. It only waved its claws when Lin Dong was running around in circles, thanks to the cluster of Nirvana demon flame. A symbol that was agglomerated from cream-colored warm light suddenly shot out from within the stone talisman. The white symbol glow flashed past. Just like a net, it dashed towards that Nirvana demon flame and completely wrapped itself around it. The two collided with each other in an instant. However, the domineering manner that the Nirvana demon flame had displayed earlier did not appear again when they made contact. That white-colored symbol was flickering repeatedly as it strangely stopped the momentum of the Nirvana demon flame. Seal. Little Martin's eyes flashed the moment it saw the situation. Its claws danced and the white glow symbol spread swiftly. It became just like a seal that firmly wrapped around that cluster of Nirvana demon flame. When that Nirvana demon flame was wrapped by the white glowing symbol, the wild fluctuation that was originally present on it strangely calmed down gradually. Clearly, the energy of this stone talisman was actually able to suppress the melting strength of the Nirvana demon flame. Little Martin beckoned with its claw. The Nirvana demon flame, which was wrapped by the white glowing symbol, slowly descended. Finally, it was suspended in front of Lin Dong's cautious eyes. Lin Dong stared at this cluster of black-colored flame in front of him. Only after seeing that it did not react strangely did he quietly sigh in relief. Immediately, a joyous expression surged onto his face. The process of subduing this Nirvana demon flame had clearly went smoother than he had expected. This stone talisman seal is sufficient to suppress this Nirvana demon flame. You use it in the future when fighting with others. It is likely that even Liu Bai would wound up in quite a sorry state. Little Martin proudly stated. Lin Dong nodded. This thing would only appear after having attempted the third Nirvana tribulation. Therefore, there was no question that it was extremely dangerous. If it was used appropriately, it would indeed be a killing move. There would definitely be some extremely troublesome opponents in the upcoming fights. Examples include the mysterious Yang Sen and the others. If one wanted to fight with these people, one would likely be eaten alive unless one possessed some special tactics. Lin Dong fiddled with the Nirvana demon flame that had been sealed by the stone talisman seal. He immediately flicked his finger and saw a wisp of black-colored flame being separated from it. This wisp of black-colored flame had just appeared when the Nirvana flame that permeated the surroundings suddenly rose in an increasingly intense. Lin Dong's body actually vaguely showed signs of merging with this sea of fire. Let's go. Lin Dong smiled. He maneuvered this wisp of Nirvana demon flame and wrapped it around himself and Little Flame. Immediately, they appeared to have merged with this sea of flame as they quietly hurried through it. Their speed was several times faster than before. This was a Nirvana fire sea, while this Nirvana demon flame was an existence that was even stronger than the Nirvana fire. With its presence, the ripples which could ignite the Nirvana chi in one's body was also completely isolated outside Lin Dong's body. Moreover, there was even a merger between the two. This allowed Lin Dong to be just like a fish in water. He swiftly swam through it in a completely silent manner. It was likely that he would not be detected by others even if he was to pass by them. Moreover, the most important thing was that with the isolation from the Nirvana demon flame, the many fire thunder and other hidden attacks that filled the sea of fire was completely ineffective against Lin Dong. The current Lindong seemed to have transformed into a flame within the sea of fire. With Lindong's speed, the sea of fire was swiftly channeled behind him. Lindong could sense that the heat surrounding him seemed to have weakened. Immediately, Lindong's spirits were lifted. He knew that he was about to pass through this Nirvana burning sky array. Two figures which were wrapped by fire swiftly rushed past this sea of fire. Suddenly, the flame shook a little. A haze shot out from within it and looked towards their left. A vacuum had actually appeared within the sea of fire at that spot. There was a black figure stepping on empty space within that vacuum. Lindong's eyes looked towards the figure that had actually formed a vacuum within this Nirvana burning sky array. His eyes had shrunk into the size of a pinhole, especially after he sensed the vague fluctuation from the body. "Lindong, be careful." Little Martin let out a low, surprised voice that suddenly sounded within Lindong's heart. That voice actually contained a rare solemnness that had never appeared before. This scene that suddenly unraveled within the vast sea of fire caused Lindong to be so stunned that he unable to react in time. However, he did not lose his calm and exposed himself due to his cautious nature. Instead, he carefully maneuvered a wisp of Nirvana demon flame and perfectly hid his body within that sea of flames. Lindong hid in the darkness. His gaze involuntarily shot over towards the opposite side. Following the careful screening with his eyes, he had discovered that there were two figures instead of one in that vacuum. However, the second figure was a little adrift. That figure appeared to have utilized a method similar to the one Lindong used to hide himself. He had allowed his body to merge with the surroundings. Therefore, Lindong was unable to spot him immediately. Who are these two people? Lindong's eyes became extremely solemn. He could sense an extremely dangerous ripples emitting from those two figures. That kind of danger was something that even exceeded what he had felt from Liu Bai. This discovery caused Lindong's heart to be somewhat shaken. He knew that this ancient battlefield was filled with hidden experts. However, they shouldn't have reached this extent. The aura of those two people are a little strange. Little Martin's cautious voice also suddenly sounded out. "What do you mean?" Lindong frowned slightly as he asked in his heart. "I am unable to explain. Their auras are a little different compared with the people in the ancient battlefield." Little Martin hesitated and said. Lindong was startled. These people from the ancient battlefield had all come from the Eastern Xian empires. Since Little Martin had said that these people's aura were a little different from theirs, was it possible that these two people were not from the Eastern Xian region? This ridiculous thought caused Lindong to involuntarily shake his head. This ancient battlefield should have been controlled by those super sects from the Eastern Xian region. Being the training ground which they used to select disciples, those who were not from their Eastern Xian region would definitely not be allowed in. Although these two people might seem strong to Lindong's eyes, they would likely be viewed as ordinary individuals in the eyes of those super sects. Therefore, they would not be able to hide from those abnormal existence and sneak into the ancient battlefield. While various thoughts were coursing through Lindong's mind, the two people within that vacuum region also began to converse. Their voices were not loud, but Lindong was also clear able to hear them. He heard a vague husky soft voice. "This space, the Eastern Xian region, has been in possession of it for long enough." This short sentence caused a storm to suddenly rage within Lindong's heart. He even felt his skin vaguely turn numb. Just what did he accidentally stumbled upon? He had come from a small empire, the Great Yang Empire. The Eastern Xian region was currently just like a colossal existence that he could not even fathom. Yet, there was actually someone who was planning to snatch this space from such a great being's hands. Just how frightening would this fight be? Lindong's eyes flickered. He decisively turned around and left. It was best that he did not get involved with something like this. Besides, it would also be pointless even if he got involved. Who is there? However, the instant Lindong turned around, a slight ripple was emitted from his perfectly concealed body. A cry that seemed to have originated from hell resounded from that vacuum region. Swoosh! Cold perspiration instantly flowed down from Lindong's forehead. In the next instant, his body suddenly rushed forward. His speed was also unleashed to its limit. Bang bang! While he was fleeing, the sea of flame behind him was suddenly split apart by a frightening energy. After which, it gave chase with a lightning-like speed. Lin Dong's eyes shrunk when he sensed the ripple from behind him. He knew that if those two mysterious fellows from behind him were to catch up, it was likely that he would wound up in a sorry state today. Little Flame's eyes were somewhat bright red while he remained by Lin Dong's side. A black-colored light tiger was vaguely visible. The metal rod in his hand also released its scales with a kai sound. Don't be reckless. Lin Dong was a little anxious when he saw Little Flame's actions. Little Flame might possess quite a powerful fighting strength and would even be able to fight head-on against a 2-yuan Nirvana stage expert. However, the two mysterious people behind definitely possess strength that far exceeds a 2-yuan Nirvana stage. At this moment, the incomparably sharp energy had swiftly descended and was about to cover both Lin Dong and Little Flame. Lin Dong clenched his fist before an ancient secret key appeared. After which, he grabbed Little Flame and entered into the mysterious key domain. Rumble. Lin Dong could sense that the entire space trembled intensely the moment he entered the mysterious key space, and it felt as though the space was collapsing. Fortunately, this tremble lasted for only a moment before it completely disappeared. Although the tremble had ceased, Lin Dong still did not dare to make any unusual movement. He knew that though there was no way to infiltrate this mysterious key domain, he did not know for sure whether those two mysterious people were in possession of any unique skills. The interior of the mysterious key domain was completely silent. Even Lin Dong's breath was suppressed to its weakest extent. Lin Dong shut his eyes and his mind merged with the ancient secret key. He was able to vaguely sense that there seemed to be a kind of vague scanning that swept over the ancient secret key before spreading over from a great distance. This kind of scanning continued for a short while before it completely disappeared. At that moment, Lin Dong finally heaved a sigh of relief and sat down. Flame spread from within the sea of flame while Lin Dong had sighed in relief. Two figures flashed and appeared. Their expressions were somewhat solemn as their gazes repeatedly swept around them in a sharp and shady manner. That fellow had actually escaped. One of the two knitted his eyebrows and spoke in a solemn voice. Would he hinder our plans? The person who asked the question had an ordinary appearance. However, both of his eyes were a deep, strange purple-black color. His eyes were densely cold as he glanced all around him before replying immediately, "We did not reveal too much information before. Even if he wished to inform others, he would have nowhere to do so. By the time he has an opportunity, our plan would have already been completed. We were really careless." However, that fellow was actually able to merge with the Nirvana burning sky array and escaped our senses. Looks like he is also no simple individual. The other person shook his head and spoke darkly. Forget it, let's go first. We should avoid revealing ourselves from now onwards to avoid any complications in the future. That man with purple-black eyes spoke before waving his hand and swiftly rushing towards another area, at a great distance away. This sea of flames became quiet once again after the two people left. This kind of silence continued for around 10+ minutes before the sea of fire shook. Those two people who had left earlier had once again strangely appeared. Only after they looked at their surroundings that was completely void of activity with ugly expressions, did they finally clench their teeth and completely turn their bodies around. After these two people had completely given up, they became unaware that Lin Dong had finally walked out of the mysterious key domain into a sea of flame that was a short distance away. Lin Dong and Little Flame looked at the quiet sea of flames around them and heaved a sigh of relief. TSK, that was really close. Little Martin also appeared. It lowered before immediately saying, "Those people should not be people from the Eastern Xian region. It seems that we have become aware of something. It is best to be ignorant about such matters." Lin Dong shook his head. With his current strength, it was best that he did not intervene in a fight at such a level. "Relax, as long as Grandpa Martin obtains the Samsara pill, I will recover some of my strength. At that time, even those two fellows from earlier will not dare to touch you with Grandpa Martin protecting you." Little Martin waved its claws and lazily said. Lin Dong rolled his eyes at that fellow. He was too lazy to reply him. After sweeping his gaze around, he identified his direction and said, "Let's go." We have already arrived at the edge of this formation. It is likely that we are about to arrive at our destination. Lin Dong did not appear to be overly worried about those two mysterious people from earlier. Although he was unaware of just what method they had used to sneak into this ancient battlefield, he did not believe that they had anyone who was on par with those super sect disciples. It was fine if these people hid in this place. However, they would likely not dare to create a commotion. Otherwise, the first ones whom they would end up attracting would be the super sects observing this place. Those super sects from the eastern Xian region would definitely not allow these outsiders to create trouble in their training ground. Little Martin once again flew into the stone talisman after hearing this. Little Flame also nodded his head and followed behind Lin Dong. They swiftly flew towards another part of the Sea of Flame. This time around, Lin Dong no longer merged with the Sea of Flame during his journey. Instead, he directly chose to use an ordinary method and used his mental power to suppress the corrosion of the fire wave. Although his speed could not be compared to before, it would not be detected for being too unique. This journey did not last for long. After around 10 minutes, Lin Dong sensed that the temperature around him had gradually begun to fall. The crimson color that permeated his eyes also began to become increasingly sparse. The crimson color became increasingly sparse before it finally disappeared completely. When Lin Dong stepped out of the Sea of Flames, he raised his eyes and saw a majestic ancient scene in front of him. He knew that he had successfully passed through the Nirvana burning sky array and reached the deeper regions of the ancient treasure trove. A spacious dim grayish-colored space appeared in front of Lin Dong. Numerous islands were suspended in this space. They were connected to one another and appeared just like a floating continent. This deep region of the treasure trove is different from the broken space outside, and the space inside was much more stable. The spatial crack lines that had occasionally occurred outside had completely disappeared in this place. Clearly, this region was under a special protection. Even after a long period of time, the space was still preserved rather perfectly. One could vaguely see some human figures flash by at this moment. It was likely that they were from those powerful empires who had arrived ahead of others. Almost all of them who possessed the qualification to enter this place were considered as the elite in this northwestern region. After all, even an expert at the Nirvana stage would face a grave threat to his life when he attempts to cross the Nirvana burning sky array. Some of those who were unlucky enough to meet a frightening existence like the Nirvana demon flame would likely meet their demise even if he was an expert who had stepped into a 2-yuan Nirvana stage expert. After all, not everyone possessed the mysterious stone talisman which could seal a mysterious item like the Nirvana demon flame. Hence, none of those who could cross the Nirvana burning sky array and arrive at the deep region of the treasure trove were simple individuals. All of them would definitely possess some skills. Lin Dong had just charged out of the Nirvana burning sky array when some human figures also came out from behind him. These people glanced at Lin Dong, who had paused while their eyes contained a hint of cautiousness. After which, they swiftly flew towards the island suspended in the sky in the distance. This ought to be the deep region of the ancient treasure trove. Let's go. We should also go and hunt for some treasures. Lin Dong rubbed his hands together. His eyes stared at the floating island before they turned a little fiery hot. After having entered the ancient treasure trove, he had yet to obtain any treasure other than borrowing the Pill River's strength to endure a Nirvana tribulation. In fact, he had not even obtained even a single treasure. Behind him, Little Flame's face revealed a smile while he nodded. After which, the two of them rushed out and hurried towards the distant floating island. According to what was recorded on the stone talisman, this Qiangang Alliance's true leaders are the 4 great mysterious sects. Below those 4 great sects are the guardian sects. Therefore, strictly speaking, that Heaven Cloud sect is merely one of the weaker protector sects. This is the reason why one could find its remains outside. Lin Dong was conveying to Little Flame some of the information he was aware of while the both of them swiftly flew across the sky. At the same time, his eyes were also sweeping over the deserted islands below. The top 5 of the 16 protector sects reside in the deep region of this ancient treasure trove. Though their inheritances cannot be compared with the 4 great mysterious sects, they are definitely no ordinary inheritances. It is likely that quite a number of people will be interested in it. Are we heading directly to the remains of the 4 great mysterious sects? Little Flame rubbed his head and said, if only it was so easy. Only after the 5 protector sects' remains are activated, would the inheritance of the 4 great mysterious sects be activated. Lindong smiled. After which, he raised his head and looked towards the southern part of the island. He said, if the information recorded on the stone tablet is correct, there should be a sect remains over there. Let's go and take a look first. Lindong chose to up his speed after he spoke. Soon after, Little Flame also closely followed behind him. The background of the sect remains that Lindong had mentioned was quite powerful. It was named the 8th-level sect and was ranked second amongst the protector sects. In fact, it was several times more powerful than the Heaven Cloud sect which they had met earlier. It could be considered a heavyweight remains. The sect which was the top-ranking protector sects was called Ground Martial sect. Only the 4 great mysterious sect could surpass it within this Jiangang alliance. However, Lindong also understood that in terms of might, the Ground Martial sect was indeed much stronger than the 8th-level sect. However, the information that he had obtained from the stone tablet did not indicate the location of the Ground Martial sect. If Lindong was to slowly search for it, he might very well end up empty-handed. In that case, it was better in principle to directly aim for this 8th-level sect. Since Lindong had a target in mind, Lindong and Little Flame did not pause along the way for anything that appeared to be like the remains of other sects. Hence, the two of them flew past countless number of floating islands after around half an hour before they finally reduced their speed gradually. Their attention were cast towards a distant island. That island was quite unique and there were no mountains on it. On a cursory glance, it seemed as though the entire island was an incomparably large and open ground. At the middle of the open ground was an enormous stone hall. An ancient feeling that seemed to be filled with the vicissitudes of life was emitted from within that enormous stone hall. Furthermore, there was quite a number of large stone pillars that were erected in that incomparably large open ground. These stone pillars were similarly emitting an ancient aura. If one was to observe it carefully, one would discover quite a number of deep handprints and footprints on it. It seemed as though that this place was once the training ground of this 8th-level sect. Lindong and Little Flame gradually approached this enormous stone hall. Only then did they discover that the surroundings of the stone hall already had quite a number of figures present. Clearly, they were the powerful empires and experts who had came to the deep region of this treasure trove. However, Lindong did not hide himself when he saw them. Instead, he directly descended from the sky before landing on a stone pillar with Little Flame. The appearance of 2 additional people attracted quite a number of gazes. From the looks of it, it seemed as though Lindong was not unfamiliar to them. Private conversations were vaguely emitted. This fellow is Lindong, who had defeated Shakuan from the Devil Cliff Empire, right? He is quite capable indeed. By relying on his low-rank empire background, he was actually able to reach this stage. He is truly not a simple person. Those private conversations were not overly hidden. Hence, quite a bit of it were transmitted into Lindong's ears. This caused him to feel a little surprised. It was likely that he did not expect that his victory over Shakuan would be spread so quickly. No wonder these experts did not reveal any disdain in their eyes when they were aware that he had come from the Great Yang Empire. All of them understood that one's birth was not important in this place. The most important thing was one's personal strength. If one wanted to stand out from the countless number of geniuses in this 100 Empire War, possessing a noble birth without ability would be useless. No one would even look at you with respect if that was the case. Those super sects would not be bothered about whether you come from a low-rank or high-rank empire. All they wanted were the true geniuses. Lindong's eyes swept over this enormous stone hall. After which, he understood a little of the situation in his heart. Other than those scattered individuals, there were 3 groups of people which attracted the most attention. Lindong was unfamiliar with these 3 groups of people. However, each of them was standing with their hands behind them right at the front. Moreover, these 3 peoples were also the only ones who did not give Lindong an additional glance. It was likely that they were all relatively arrogant people in their hearts. Of course, the powerful ripple that spread out from their bodies also allowed others to understand that they indeed possessed the qualification to be arrogant. 2 Yuan Nirvana stage. Lin Dong's eyes narrowed slightly as he paused on those three people. His heart involuntarily sighed emotionally. Those who could arrive at this deep region of the treasure trove were indeed no ordinary people. The fluctuating aura of these two were much stronger than Shikuan, who had just advanced into the 2 Yuan Nirvana stage. No wonder they did not glance much at Lin Dong. How could the sect remains here not possess any energy barrier? Little Flame spoke with some doubt while he stood beside Lin Dong. Lin Dong was also startled when he heard this. Only then did he discover that the surroundings of this 8th-level sect's remains actually did not possess the energy barrier that was just like that of the Dry Cloud sect. In this way, it seemed like this remains had actually been revealed in front of everyone's eyes without any defense. Something seemed a little wrong. Lin Dong knitted his brows slightly. He did not believe that this kind of sect remains would appear this calm. He immediately looked around him and also saw that quite a number of people possessed some hesitation and doubt within their eyes. It seemed that they were unable to tell just what the meaning of this scene in front of them was. 3 groups of people with 2 Yuan Nirvana stage experts also looked at each other outside of the enormous hall. There was an eager expression in their eyes. It was likely that they had become a little impatient after having waited here for such a long time. Lin Dong silently observed this scene, but he did not open his mouth to speak. Lin Dong, under this place, there seems to be something. Little Martin's voice quietly sounded in Lin Dong's heart while he remained quiet. Lin Dong narrowed his eyes slightly. His eyes turned downwards without being noticed and stared at the potholed ground of the area that had been corroded over time. His heart softly asked, "What is it?" "I'm not certain. That ripple seems to be a little strange. However, you should be wary. It is impossible that such a place does not possess any defense." Little Martin hesitated for a moment. Clearly, he was unable to clearly define the thing. Lin Dong gently nodded. Yuan power slowly circulated within his body. Even his spiritual strength had quietly spread apart. He would be able to intervene with lightning-like speed the moment any unexpected situation occurs. Yuan Nirvana stage. Little Flame by the side had clearly sensed Lin Dong's action. Immediately, a red glow flashed across his eyes. His strong body leaned forward, appearing like a fierce tiger that was about to pounce onto its prey. While Lin Dong and Little Flame was treating the situation solemnly, the 3 groups of people right at the front were finally unable to control themselves as they began to move. One could see the 3 2 Yuan Nirvana stage experts took the lead to rush out before directly dashing towards the enormous stone hall. The speed of the 3 people were extremely fast. Within a blink, they had appeared within 1,000 feet of the enormous stone hall. However, just when their bodies were about to charge into a radius of 1,000 feet, Lin Dong suddenly shrunk his eyes. This was because even he sensed a kind of ripple that was being transmitted towards this enormous stone open ground at this moment. Bang! The entire open ground trembled suddenly within a split second. Immediately, the ground of the enormous stone hall at the front crumbled. A grayish-white-colored large figure rushed out from underground with lightning speed. After which, it violently collided onto the 3 human figures with a speed that could not be detected with a naked eye. Boom boom boom. 3 muffled sound appeared. Those 3 2 Yuan Nirvana stage experts directly flew back in front of the many shocked eyes. Their bodies landed on the ground in a miserable manner and their feet directly rubbed a deep scar on the ground. After which, their eyes were also shocked as they looked at the ground in front of the enormous stone hall which had cracked apart. Grey dust permeated the place. A moment later, an enormous figure seemed to have woken from the ground. It carried a kind of ancient pressure while slowly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. This is... Lin Dong looked at the enormous figure in the greyish dust and his eyes shrunk. Prehistoric demon dragon dog. Little Martin's solemn voice had also quietly sounded at this moment. The enormous stone square fractured. Dust permeated the air as a titanic shadow crawled out from below the ground. It carried a violent and menacing pressure that originated from the ancient times, as it slowly appeared on the spacious square. Prehistoric demon dragon dog. Lin Dong's expression twitched after hearing little Martin's words. He had naturally heard of this ancient demonic beast. It was a ferocious demonic beast from ancient times. Although it had a weak dragon bloodline, its ferocity and strength far exceeded some of the demonic beasts with stronger dragon bloodlines. No one knew how powerful this prehistoric demon dragon dog was, but from the presence it gave off, it was definitely extraordinary. Under numerous surprised gazes, the dust in the air finally began to fall to the ground as the titanic being clearly imprinted itself in everyone's eyes. The size of the titanic beast ranged several hundreds of feet. The large beast was grayish-white in color and it had some vague and unusual lines on it. It had a hunting dog-like body, but its head was that of a savage dragon. The four legs of the beast were standing outside of the enormous stone hall. It appeared just like a guardian beast that was protecting the hall behind. A storm-like fierce and brutal atmosphere repeatedly spread before it charged towards everyone. Lin Dong's eyes stared intently at this prehistoric demon dragon dog. However, he suddenly discovered that both of its eyes seemed to be void of any life. Instead, they were stiff and appeared just like deep empty holes. There were even waves after waves of a deathly aura vaguely spreading from it. This prehistoric demon dragon dog has been dead for a long time. No wonder I felt that its fluctuation was a little strange. Little Martin's voice also contained a little surprise. Dead? Lin Dong was startled for a moment. Although the interior of its body no longer contained any life force, it still possessed a remnant desire. It is likely that this prehistoric demon dragon dog is the guardian demonic beast of this 8th-level sect, and its task is to protect the sect. Even in death, its desire to protect the remains here. This kind of demon dragon dog might be incomparably fierce and brutal, but once it was tamed, it will be exceptionally loyal. Quite a number of sects in the ancient times used the prehistoric demon dragon dog to guard their sects. Little Martin explained. However, fortunately it is dead. Currently, the strength of this demon dragon dog is not even half of its peak strength. With our current lineup, it is not impossible to deal with it. If this thing was really still alive, it would be best for you to leave as soon as possible. Lin Dong nodded slightly. This demon dragon dog might have emitted a shocking fluctuation, but it had not reached the point where it was sufficient to frighten them off. It was likely that with the flow of time, the strength within the demon dragon dog's body had been greatly exhausted. Although it still possessed a remnant will, it was no longer at its peak condition. It is actually a prehistoric demon dragon dog. Some exclamations were also emitted on this square while this thought flashed within their hearts. Clearly, little Martin and Lin Dong were not the only ones who had recognized the origin of this thing. Humph, this demon dragon dog no longer possesses any life and it is clearly dead. Even if it could still resist, it is not something worth worrying about. A 2-yuan Nirvana stage expert, who was the leader of a group, swept his eyes over the demon dragon dog and laughed coldly. Clearly, he had also discovered some clues. Everyone, let's attack together, finish off this demon dragon dog and unlock the remains of the 8th-level sect. Another 2-yuan Nirvana stage expert softly cried out. Although this demon dragon dog was dead, a skinny and dead camel was still larger than a horse. It was best to be a little cautious. The surrounding experts had clearly become somewhat eager when they heard the words of these two people. The remains of the 8th-level sect clearly possessed quite a great allure. Lin Dong, this demon dragon dog is quite useful to you. Your heavenly crocodile bone spear possessed the remnant soul of the ancient heavenly crocodile. However, it needs an ancient bloodline to wake it up. Although that ancient heavenly scales halberd of yours possessed a faint dragon blood, it is still too weak. Even if you were to use it, the ancient heavenly crocodile that you end up summoning would likely only be able to fight with a 1-yuan Nirvana stage expert. It is not sufficient for the current situation which you are facing. However, if you are able to obtain the blood of this demon dragon dog and use it with the dragon blood in the ancient heavenly scales halberd, the heavenly crocodile soul fragment that you summon will be even more powerful. Lin Dong nodded a little uncertainly when he heard little Martin's words. Following his entrance into this ancient treasure trove, he had also sensed some pressure. After all, he had already met 3 2UR Nirvana stage experts at this remains of the 8-level sect alone. Just how many hidden experts would appear when he reached the 4 mysterious hall? If one wanted to contest for any treasures with these people, it was naturally best to have as many trump cards as possible. You should look for a suitable opportunity to attack. This demon dragon dog might be dead, but it is likely that other people would also be aware of just how precious its blood was. A fight might be unavoidable at that time. Lindong nodded his head slightly. Even though there are 3 2UR Nirvana stage experts around, these people were not in the same group. Furthermore, with Lindong's capability, it was likely that they would not dare to do anything against him. Attack! While Lindong had placed his thoughts onto the blood of the demon dragon dog, a cry suddenly sounded from around the hall. After which, 3 2UR Nirvana stage experts rushed out at the same time. Fierce and powerful Yuan power pillars shot out. They possessed a mountain-like weight as they ruthlessly struck at the demon dragon dog. After these 3 people led the attack, the surroundings experts also began to swiftly do so. Immediately, numerous powerful ripples erupted. The weakest amongst those who had arrived at this place was also a Nirvana stage expert. The force from their combined attack at this moment also caused Lindong's brows to twitch involuntarily. Roar! The demon dragon dog suddenly roared towards the sky as it stared at the attacks which swarmed at it from every direction. Grayish-white colored powerful energy swept out from its body. After which, this energy directly collided with the many attacks. Boom boom boom. Low and deep explosive sounds sounded repeatedly over this spacious square. Numerous ripples also swept apart. Lindong's eyes calmly watched this scene. He knew that the demon dragon dog might be fierce and brutal, but since it had lost its life force, it would not be able to endure for long. This seemingly intense face-off was likely a temporary one. Furthermore, the 3 2UR Nirvana stage experts were quite cunning. They only struck the weakest part of the demon dragon dog when they attacked. However, the 3 of them were obviously not people of the same group. All of them felt wary when they attacked. They were afraid of allowing the other parties to gain an advantage. In this way, it had undoubtedly caused the duration of the battle to be dragged on significantly longer. Although this situation allowed the demon dragon dog to endure for a longer period of time, its body, which was already nearing its limit, finally reached it in the face of the unending Yuan power explosion. Its shriveled body exploded, revealing those grayish-white fresh. There were even fresh blood still present within it. The instant that the demon dragon dog had fallen onto the ground, the eyes of those 3 2UR Nirvana stage experts brightened. They rushed out at almost the same time and grabbed at the dense white-colored bones of the demon dragon dog. All of them knew that the essence blood of such a demonic beast was hidden within the bone marrow. The 3 of them rushed out and they had actually suddenly attacked each other while they were still in midair. Clearly, they intended to hinder the other parties. Lindong, do it! Little Martin's voice also suddenly sounded in Lindong's heart at this moment. The moment Little Martin's word sounded, Lindong's body suddenly rushed forward. His speed was extremely quick. Within a flash, he had already surpassed the 3 2UR Nirvana stage experts who were fighting each other. The person who had suddenly appeared had clearly surprised those 3 fellows. Immediately, their expressions became a little ugly. Most of the people present knew that the demon dragon dog's ancient blood was extremely rare and it was a good item to temper one's body with. However, none of them did anything. This was because they understood that they did not have the qualification to snatch anything in front of those 2UR Nirvana stage experts. However, this person who had suddenly appeared finally allowed them to come to a suddenly comprehension. There was actually still one person present who was not afraid of them. That person was Lindong. Humph! The expressions of the 3 of them were a little ugly. They let out a cold snort but did not throw any vicious words. Having heard quite a lot of rumors about Lindong, they had clearly treated Lindong as a person who was on the same level as them. Hence, the right path now was to rely on their own abilities. The 3 of them abandoned their fight with one another at this moment. One after another, they also followed Lindong when he landed on the corpse of the demon dragon dog. After which, they did not waste their breath and their hand broke a grayish-white bone. A suction force surged out from their palms in an attempt to suck out the ancient blood. From the way they saw it, even though Lindong had quite a strong fighting strength, he was after all only a 1 yuan Nirvana stage expert. Lindong ought to be weaker than them in terms of such skill. Humph, brat, you are still a little too tender to snatch the food from in front of us. Although these three people did not say such words, the gloating expression in their eyes still revealed these information. Lindong merely smiled when he saw this. After which, he leaned forward in front of the eyes of those three. His hand slowly pressed onto a dense white bone. Immediately, his palm spun and a suction force suddenly swept out. Bang! The entire demon dragon dog's corpse trembled at this moment. After which, 3 2 yuan Nirvana stage experts were stunned to see threads of black lines flashing past the densely white bones. Finally, they wildly gathered towards Lindong's hand. Within less than 10 seconds, those threads of black lines agglomerated into a cluster of black-colored blood. A powerful energy ripple spread from within the cluster of blood. The three of them looked at the half-a-head-large ancient blood in Lindong's hand. After which, they looked at the thumb-sized black-colored blood on theirs. Immediately, their expression had turned to one that was similar to a pig's liver.